You are entering The Take Up, a place to gather when the film is over. I'm your host, Joshua Ray, and I'm here with my co-host and managing editor of thetakeup.com, Andrew Wyatt. Hey, Andrew.
Hello.
And today we are processing Certain Women. That's Andrew's pick for the Sister Kristen program.
Hey, Will, good news. Your lawyer's here.
No one understands what my life has become.
I don't mean to keep you from getting to work or anything. I just knew if I didn't start driving, I wasn't going to see you again. Didn't want that.
It'd be so lovely to think that if I were a man, people would listen and say, okay. It would be so restful.
It's your choice in the Sister Kristen series, Certain Women. Talking to a friend who saw this in theater and saw it. I think he said he saw it with just one older couple in the theater. And when it ended, they go, "That's it." Like,
I wish I could say I haven't seen that reaction in person before, but I have.
Right.
For other films, yeah.
Well, all of her films sort of end on a tentative pause of possibility. And this one definitely does 3 times. And I love that. It's not a dig for me at all. So, all right, let's get into it. Talk about why you love this movie. Is it love? Am I correct?
Yeah, I love this movie.
I love it too. I've seen it before. I watched it on a crappy screener and was like, yes, that's a good entry in the Kelly Reichardt canon. Moved on with my life. Rewatching it was like, oh, wait, is this my favorite one? Maybe. It's hard to pick. There aren't a lot to pick from, which we'll definitely get into. But this movie's so special. And it's all the tiny little details, which... if you want to hear us talking about, I don't know, the way someone wipes their mouth with a napkin, you're going to stay tuned for the next 45 minutes.
Right.
So what's your history with it?
The history here is that I'm a huge Kelly Reichardt fan. She's like a top 5 filmmaker for me. I've seen all of her features now. I sort of did some last minute catch up and watched a couple that I hadn't seen before. So I've seen her complete filmography, or at least her complete feature filmography, which I can't say about many filmmakers. I think it's like her, David Lynch, Pete, Paul Thomas Anderson. That's about all I can think of who fall into that category. She's a filmmaker that I've loved. I think her first film I ever saw was Wendy and Lucy back in like 2000, would have been like 2007. And then I went back. That motivated me to seek out Old Joy, and I pretty much followed her career with great interest since then. I think I sort of think of her as like one of the 2 great American indie auteurs. A lot of people will say, I think one of the interesting things about her is that she is getting better, and I don't mean that to sound condescending to say to a 60-year-old filmmaker. What I mean is that often with American indie filmmakers, you see this like, well, their first film was great and they've been chasing that high ever since. I think with Reichardt, like her last 3 films have been like her best, like they're extraordinary. And so she's got a new film coming out this year that was in festivals last year, showing up. So that I'm excited to see where she goes. But yeah, I loved this film. It's not quite an anthology film. So let's back up and describe it a little bit. Not quite an anthology film. How would you describe it? Maybe a Altman-esque?
No, kind of. I mean, they can be taken as discrete sections following really 3 main characters. So they're based on Miley Malloy stories. This is a writer, published a few short story anthologies. I don't want to get too into like every other one because I feel like this is just going to be a Reichardt seminar.
It can be.
Right here. It can be. That's fine. Okay.
I would love to have a Reichardt seminar. We could do a whole series about her.
I had seen half of her films before really just a few days ago and finally caught up with the other half. And it's not that I don't greatly admire those other films. I think we both had First Cow as our number 1 film of 2020, 2021, whatever year that was. there were just things that I had never caught up with and was always felt awful about it. But can I just say that Wendy and Lucy seemed like torture to me because I knew too much about it and I could not handle it emotionally.
Yeah.
Turns out it is devastating in a completely different way. But anyway, River of Grass is a very different film.
Yeah.
And you can see the seeds of what she's interested in. She's interested in like American systems. She's interested in gender politics. She's interested in violence and how it's, stems from all of these things. But Old Joy represented quite the shift from River of Grass, which is like almost feels like Gregoraki does Terrence Malick or something. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was explicitly thinking, just because we watched it last year for this series, I was thinking of The Living End and like how the idea of like the crime street. I described it as a Dennis Johnson Bonnie and Clyde, where they instead of like rip roaring across the country and leaving a bloody track, they can't even get out of Dade County.
They can't even manage to murder someone, maybe. Yeah. But so Old Joy is this big shift, and then moving into Wendy and Lucy seems like a huge breakout, and a breakout for Michelle Williams as well as Kelly Reichardt. And then the kind of big one, I would say, is Meek's Cutoff. That's the follow-up to the big breakout, right? And that's a huge critical success. But she's sort of, I don't want to use the term, but she has been sort of stuck in an echelon there, as far as being lumped in certain conversations with people who you mentioned before. And like Paul Thomas Anderson, I don't feel like the boys don't talk about Kelly Reichardt and Paul Thomas Anderson.
This boy does.
Right. So while
I know that she's been struggling too, like professionally too. She was teaching for a while to get her films made.
She teaches. Like that's her main income, and then that's why you see these huge gaps in years between what she does. Is she teaches film. So she's making Night Moves, which is very different film too.
I'd say River of Grass and Night Moves are like the big outliers. And I like them both.
Thematically,
they're very different. Yeah, they're very different.
Yeah, it's like
a story.
It's like newer Kelly Reichardt covering River of Grass with eco-terrorism.
I said it's her like Crime and Punishment by way of Michael Mann.
Yeah. There's one thing about Kelly Reichardt that never comes up that I gotta talk about. But so while she's making Night Moves, which is a bigger scale production, even though it's like just a cast of really like 3, but it is a lot more involved. She's reading Malloy, was that her name? Malloy's stories, and gets interested in adapting some specific ones. And doesn't work with Jonathan Richman this time, takes a stab at the screenplay on her own. And what she comes out with is essentially an anthology story where the stories are tenuously connected. They're not really like, they're not all set apart on their own, but there are ways that they inform each other, and there are characters that carry over into certain narratives.
I would say that like there's an obvious thematic through line through them all, and then like there's a little grace note where we get a little, almost like a punctuation mark, to see where we get to see what the line of narrative connection is between them. But it's almost there as just like a bit of icing, it isn't really important. It isn't, I don't even think it's really that important. It's the thematic through line that's important. They all take place, we should say that they all take place in this one small town in Montana. Roughly, they seem to all sort of happen around the same time.
Livingston, Montana,
So around the same time.
It is, in a way, a revisionist Western. Bring up Robert Altman. In a way, it's a revisionist Western. And it has 3 sort of typically Western stories. The first one, You've got like a Rio Bravo situation,
Yeah, a standoff.
which is a standoff.
Yeah.
In the second one is sort of about land and
Homesteading.
family, homesteading.
Yeah.
And then the third one is about isolation. So I say all this, and it's not like Tarantino doing Django Unchained, right? It's not referential to a lot of Western filmmaking.
No, it's just there hanging over the film. You make a film in Montana and you have a woman fixating on building the perfect house. We can't but help think about homesteading. We can't think about, I mean, again, we can't help but think about Meek's Cutoff, another movie with Michelle Williams trying to stake a claim out west. Like, it's, these things are not, like you say, they're not insisting. They're not, the film isn't insisting upon them, but they're there. Reichardt herself is a Florida native, but she moved out to Oregon.
There's a great interview on the Criterion disc with Todd Haynes, who's an executive producer on this.
And a
of
longtime
course,
friend.
Longtime friend. He actually got her out to Portland as sort of a respite from New York City, if you can believe that. Like, and we're here in St. Louis being like, yeah, it's real slow motion. Anyway, so the West or Western stories inform this, but only inform it. And I think there are relationships between, what's going on in those traditional narratives, and really a lot of them come from film, and the discrete stories that are happening here. So let's talk about the stories. How about we go in order of the film?
Sure.
Which I think makes sense. The first one features Laura Dern being Laura Dern, being so great as Laura Dern. Laura
Dern in like constantly vaguely irritated mode, which I love her in.
I love it. Well, I can understand. I'm gonna get one reservation out of the way.
Yeah.
I don't like Jared Harris's performance in this.
Is it the accent, or is it just something else?
It's him having to do the accent. It's like it you can see the wheels turning or something. Like, I'm capital A acting. Like, that just sucks. I wish it was someone else, because I also really like Jared Harris, mostly as Lane Price in Mad Men.
I see what you're saying. I liked seeing him in it just because it felt like an atypical role for him. But I guess I see what you're saying.
Yeah, it's a little bit too much Jared Harris as. But once you move past that, I think he's, it's fine. It's just that everything that surrounds it feels so much more lived in and less forced than what he's up to. But really, the first scene, I like Todd Haynes in that interview I mentioned compared it to the opening of Psycho. Not only in what's happening, and that Laura Dern is like lying in a bed in her bra and is clearly having some sort of clandestine meeting with a man who she should not be meeting with, if you're a quote unquote moral person, I guess. She's having an affair, and he seems less interested than she is.
Well, she gets that call, the breakup call that isn't really a breakup call later.
And it shows where her focus really is, or where her focus goes in her head to the work immediately, because it's clear to us that he's calling to have the conversation to say, hey, we have to end this. I have a wife, I have a kid, blah, blah, blah. And she's sort of in crisis mode, right?
Like, well, hey, I gotta let you go. I've got something else more important going on.
Yeah,
whatever you're trying to negotiate here.
But she's a lawyer, and Jared Harris is playing a injured worker who seems to have settled already for an injury, a workman's comp claim. Whatever the word is, like the kind of case it is, but he's already settled, and he seems a little obsessive about not only the case, but also his relationship with her, not just as the lawyer, but maybe it is just that level. He comes in, and I love this thing about setting the door. I feel like you learn a lot about that character when he walks in and he's like, this door keeps closing. Let me put this hole punch underneath it so that it's set correct and it won't keep closing. It's like, because it's very performative. Like, look what I can do, because that's the type of man that he is at this point. That's all he can do is sort of show off. Of course, she's just put him on, and like she can't even be bothered to tuck in her sweater completely. Right, yes, she might.
The great detail.
It's such a good detail.
And the disposable lint, not even like a good lint brush, but the disposable tape lint roller on her
Walgreens,
skirt.
$2.99, yeah.
And I think that's sort of thing. Those kind of details are one of the things I love about Reichardt's filmmaking. She's so sensitive to things that feel, as you say, lived in, but it's even beyond that. Like, part of it is just, one of the things I love about her is her as a storyteller is her sensitivity to economics and her sensitivity to class, and just the way that, seeing that she has to use one of those Walgreens removers on her skirt after her tryst with a married man, that she kind of, with the blouse half untucked, that detail tells us so much about her as a person, her position as a lawyer, even like a small town lawyer, even within the sort of category of small town lawyer. We already sense that there's these divisions between different types of lawyers and different scales and different niches. Like, again, so much work being done through tiny details, which is what one of the things I always respond to really well with her.
And it's all descriptive and isn't prescriptive at all.
No,
we
don't even really get
it.
It takes a while for like Jared Harris's character's case and us to understand exactly what's going on with him to completely unravel. Like, basically takes the entire first segment for us to truly understand where he's at and what happened to him. And we actually get backstory literally read to us by Laura Dern when
he says this is
has
gonna take all night.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry.
Like, also, no, she says this is going to take all night. But also, us talking about this is going to take all night.
Because I'm just going to we should keep going, because I'm just going to gush about every little micro scene here.
Well, yeah, me too, because that's what's so special about Reichardt. That's the thing that I went back and watched River of Grass, and you get some of that, but River of Grass is more representational. They're just like, it's so like 94 indie, and it is that, but when
we have this like character in River of Grass who is very obviously like meant to stand in for this like post-feminine mystique ennui, right? Of
and
being
she
a woman in
says
America.
The things,
yeah, she narrates
all the things, right?
All we get, and in comparison, what we get in Certain Women, the most like explicit thing we get is Laura Dern sort of just sighing in frustration at the fact that her client battles her for 8 months about something, but when he gets a second opinion from a male attorney, he accepts it immediately.
I mean, that's sort of like great. The clincher.
She doesn't scream about
entirely.
It.
Right.
She doesn't scream about it. She just says, it would be so great if some man could take me seriously. And that's it. That's like the most explicit we get. And the sort of the subtle version of it is like the second chapter, when we get Michelle Williams, her husband, not standing up for her, and just the side eye that she gives him, like, seriously?
Working against her.
Yeah, like actively backpedaling. Just the Michelle Williams expressions, like, seriously? Like, that's doing the heavy lifting there. So, like, again, I like River of Grass, but you're right. Like, it's working with archetypes, and this movie is working with people.
Right. So then let me ask you, I can see this criticism. I don't know that I've read it, but I can see it happening. And I guess that shows an impulse in me to do it too, but I don't really feel this way. Is this story too big compared to the other two? Because the way it resolves is in a hostage crisis. Of course, it's a Kelly Reichardt hostage crisis. So it's slow going. The stakes don't necessarily.
The victim is very like amicable about the whole thing.
Yeah.
No guns ever actually go off. Yeah, and I think part of it is also Laura Dern, right? Like that's why you
Yeah.
cast Laura Dern, to maybe draw this back out of the Hollywood idea of what a standoff is.
Right.
The fact that she sort of treats this whole situation with a mild exasperation, a little bit of pity, a little bit of just wanting to move on. Like the fact that betraying Jared Harris's character, like at the end of that segment, the fact that she immediately walks out and tells the cop he's around back, he doesn't have a gun, that it's not presented as something that she's fraught about making that decision. She's
No,
more
she
fraught.
had already made it, and it's
Yeah,
like, this is the
she's-
right thing to
she's-
do.
What's fraught is her trying to convince him, and once again, him not listening to her, that the right thing to do is to just go out and give yourself up. So, like, I think that takes them the fact that you've got Laura Dern and the fact that she's acting in this very specific mode, I think takes some of that bigness away.
That's true.
I get
That's true.
it. I understand that criticism, but to me, it didn't really land. Again, part of it, like you say, it's such a quiet, intimate little standoff. Even the cops don't seem that like agitated, right? They're just sort of like,
and
well,
that's one thing about Reichert too, is that while we're talking about her intimate stories, the way she's focused on behavior, all of her films are also suspense films in various ways, where Meek's cutoff is, are they going to make it? Are they going to kill the indigenous guy? Are they going to, are the battle of wills that's happening between Michelle Williams and Bruce Greenwood? We can get into it. Like Night Moves takes its name from a 70s thriller and kind of winks at you while it is that very thing, and leads up to bloodshed a few times. She's always interested in like a burst or like the feeling of something disrupting her very quiet narratives, even if in Old Joy it's like sort of a sexual pass someone makes, right?
depending on how you interpret OJ, yeah.
Right. Well, that seems, whatever happens there is that it seems to rip open the space-time continuum in Old Joy, a movie that's just like my old friend.
And you could argue that like the nicest movie she's ever made, quote unquote, is First Cow. But of course, with First Cow, we have these skeletons hanging like a literal memento mori over the whole movie, promising us that this is going to end in tears. No matter how pleasant it is in the moment to hang out with these characters, we know that something bad is coming. And then it sort of, in the last 20 minutes in particular, First Cow kind of turns into a more traditional, like frontier chase escape thriller. So she's never shy about moving into those traditional like genre situations. He's never shy about violence, but I do think there's something where like, and I don't mean this as to say that she presents them badly. They're always tense and interesting, but I think the suspense is what's key. Like, so to go back to Certain Woman and back to that first segment, what's tense about that is not our expectation. We're not waiting like we would in a thriller, in a more mainstream thriller, for the entertainment of watching an explosion of violence at the end.
For him to shoot her or something.
Right. What's interesting about that sequence is the relationship in terms of emotions and the way they're physically interacting with each other in space between Laura Dern and Jared Harris in that scene. That's what's interesting. And you're waiting to see whether she can diffuse the situation, whether or how he intends to end it. It's not, I don't know how to explain it better than that. It's what's interesting is the suspense. It's not the expectation of what suspense is going to sort of climax into. I mean,
it's in the middle, that creates
sort of segue to the middle. Yeah, to sort of segue to the middle.
It's the thing that creates conflict in all of her stories, is the inability to know what someone else is thinking.
Exactly.
That's a great way to know someone's feelings. The inability to fully see a situation. So that's the suspense in the first one, is like, how will she react?
Right.
What is really happening in this man's head? But that's the second segment. So we transition. We did about 30 minutes on that. That's okay.
Don't know why you indulge her.
I was just talking to her. We did tell her that we weren't going to keep her out here all day.
But you really can't help it.
What?
Making me the bad guy. Always.
So in the second part, this is based on the story Native Sandstone, where a woman goes to her relative and asks if she can take the sandstone that's been sitting in his front yard for a while. Now Kelly Reichardt develops this a bit and throws in the fact that her husband is played by James LeGros. Is it LeGros or LeGros? I think it's LeGros. Might be. He is the guy who Laura Dern was sleeping with. So now we see that there are some connections, but I think it doesn't feel like, oh, let me make a shortcuts. You know, it feels more like it's adding texture to this because there's no real conversation in the second one about, are you cheating on me? It's not
but it
about
creates
that.
it's more about creating a dissonance for us as the audience, right? That the fact that his character Ryan seems like a very attentive. I mean, the whole point of the second segment is that he is literally building her a house to her specifications, and the way we see him interact with his daughter and with her, he's generally an attentive guy. He doesn't seem like a slouch of a husband. So I think part of what's being done there is to create dissonance for us as the viewers. We're going, okay, I need to square. I'm having to square that idea of him. And of course, we get an echo of that in Michelle Williams' character to begin with, right? Because what's the first thing we see Gina do?
She's on a run smoking.
She's on a run smoking a cigarette,
sneaking a cigarette.
She puts it out and buries it. So this is already laying the groundwork for everybody has secrets here. Everybody has something that they prefer others not to know about.
The other part that's putting tension into this is that clearly she's the more successful of the two of them. She is the quote unquote breadwinner. I don't know exactly what they do, but he works for her. And the character who plays her relative is played by Renee Auberjonois, I believe is how you say it.
Deep Space Nine
speaking
fan.
of Robert Altman, that's an Altman guy. But when they go into the house and he's there and they found out that he's fallen, he's not well, but he's not it seems like he might be okay living independently for a little bit longer, but he is in there and has a conversation about the sandstone, about work, just sort of a mundane conversation. But anytime she says something, he goes to James LeGros and talks to him. It's very rare that he addresses her, and there's a triangulation that Reichardt sets up in that room, and that there's the two of them on the couch, and across from them is Renee Auberjonois, and you can see with the eyeline matches who exactly he's talking to, and he gives all the power to James LeGros, but she is the one who is trying to exert power and influence within it. That's the thing you mentioned earlier, is that this sort of withering glance she gives him at one point when he's like, well, you can think about it.
You don't have to sell it to us.
You don't have to sell it to us.
Well, and
she keeps saying,
the way that Michelle Williams, with Gina, is her whole strategy for interacting with Albert is a very woman coded tactic,
just feigning care.
Yeah, she's inquiring about his health. He's inquiring about his what's going on with him. She's very sort of warm, or at least faking. Really good at somebody pretending to be somebody who's pretending. In that fakey warmth kind of way, she's very good at conveying that in this scene. I like how you pointed out that thing about that triangle, that one-way triangle that's occurring, because what's interesting about it is that Reichardt doesn't give us a lot of wide shots to establish that. We're relying entirely on the language of the eye lines to garner that. That's great. That's a great point.
And there's a conversation in Meek's Cutoff, and the only reason I can recall it is I literally just watched Meek's Cutoff for the first time. Sorry. Between Bruce Greenwood and Michelle Williams, those two characters, where Bruce Greenwood, is proposing, woman is creator, is chaos. She is the one who dictates. whereas man is order and giving. And she looks at him as like, I will split your ass in half. What are you talking about? And of course, you could see the seeds of that here where it's not explicitly said, but Reichert is a filmmaker who's concerned with these ideas of gender, but is not like a gender essentialist. She is not interested in women as quote unquote women. She is interested in the plight of people and how their gender might affect that plight.
That's a great way of putting it. Yeah.
And the thing that happens with Laura Dern saying, you know, if I was a man, probably listen to me. There's a key thing that Reichert says in one of the things on the disc. She expresses a sort of regret for calling it Certain Women, because then it immediately becomes a women's picture, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And that's not what she does. Really, the title Certain Women reminds me of like a John Ford movie. That's what it sounds like, sort of a colloquial term or something. But this one is sort of interested in the idea of the marriage relationship and gender and power in it. But
in this wonderfully like low stakes environment, like it's not this crazy histrionic like office politics, $1 million stakes. It's this like subtle negotiation for a pile of rocks. Like you can't think of anything more low stakes than that. But the subtlety with which all these layers that you're talking about come out just within that conversation are sort of fascinating.
The thing that is really interesting to me is that I don't really think this segment's even about that. It's about inheritance and like, what do you do when you start taking when it's not ready to be taken? Like the way she sort of quarters off this man, like the thing I need from you is I will help you, I will support you. Actually, can I just have the rocks from your yard? That's why I'm here.
Yeah.
And in aging him out of life. And you can kind of tell that he understands that too, and is sort of is hesitant to do it.
And Gina is self-aware enough to never entirely like feel 100% cool about that. Like there's guilt there. There's guilt there the whole time. But it doesn't stop her from doing it. It doesn't.
No, absolutely not, because that sandstone's pretty good looking. But she says it in the truck as they're driving away, which is one of the shots of like the reflective, very beautiful Montana Western surface against her face. This is very like Kiarostami thing to do is with the reflective surfaces. But she even says it. She's like, I don't even know if it's worth it. She doesn't really think that. She wants that stone, but she didn't realize the feeling that would come associated with it.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I like how too you mentioned about like her dynamic in that room, and I think it's important that Reichardt puts her in like her athleisure wear, which I think emphasizes that Michelle Williams is tiny. First of all, it emphasizes that Michelle Williams is tiny, but it also like again that idea of authority, the way that her husband has to remind Albert, oh no, she's the boss. Like it slips his mind because like this woman in a jogging outfit, tiny little blonde woman in a jogging outfit, he can't like, his old school mind can't comprehend that she might be the authority figure in this transaction.
It's like the thing with the sparrow. What are they? The birds? I forget what kind of birds they are. It's so beautiful. Just those birds making their noise and him saying, kind of sounds like they're saying, how are you?
Oh, the quail. He's talking about the quail.
Quails.
Yeah. Prairie quail. Yeah.
So by this point, like these segments end abruptly.
Mm-hmm.
The resolution is within irresolution. I don't know if that makes sense, but
we get like, a coda for each one. I'm kind of jumping ahead there.
Yeah, jumping ahead there.
Sorry.
I was going to surprise everyone the way she surprises us. But so you do get a coda in the first one, let's just cover them now as they relate. In the first one, Jared Harris' character is in prison at this point, and she comes to visit him and asks her to write him and says, "You can write me anything. It doesn't have to be a tome." And that's the title of the short story that it's adapted from.
That's
but
great.
It's so tender, and please give of yourself the smallest bit because you don't understand what a piece of mail means to me.
I do think
And
that it does signal, in as much as that, like, I sort of wonder off screen if she's ever actually going to do that. But I
No.
do like how it sort of illustrates the extent to which maybe his mania about his case he's finally dropped it. Like, he doesn't grab her by the lapels and say, "You got to get me out of here. What are we doing with the appeal? What's going on?" He gratefully accepts the milkshake and just says, "All I ask is that you write me a letter." He's not even talking about the case anymore. He talks almost like wistfully about his wife for a little bit and her new husband, also a convict.
And
It's
then
Wyoming. It's Wyoming, so axe murderers. They're like
Is that a true
internecine.
thing?
They're like
Is that a true thing?
internecine Rocky Mountain politics here, like in cultural things that I'm probably not understand.
Yeah, I probably don't even want to look at any of that. I think it would probably scare me. The resolution or the coda for the second one is them building, really. And
collecting the sandstone finally, yeah.
Yeah, and then having built like a little wall with it, but they're still in their campsite. I gotta tell you, her smoking a cigarette by a tree in front of them can relate.
That's character development, though, right? She's not hiding it anymore.
Yes. As an on again, off again, on again, on again, off and off. I'm a smoker. I get it. Hiding it, burying it, fuck it, gonna smoke it. Like, it says so much to me. So then we have this third segment. We haven't even got to the third segment,
which is where
Jeez.
case 2 comes up. Yeah.
Oh man. This I don't know. Like, if you were to, I love the first two segments, but even if you were to remove this from certain women and
Make a
have
great
it
short
sitting on-
film.
it's the best 40 minutes of filmmaking. I don't, maybe it's because I'm a homosexual. Is that it? And I understand.
No, I'm a sucker. I
Byron.
love it too. I'm a sucker for, like, I'm straight dude, but I'm a sucker for like anything about like romantic longing and shooting your shot and fucking it up. It's like, I love movies people shoot their shot, but I think it's even more important that people shoot their shot and have it fuck up. And then go like skate into just creepy stalker territory after a while.
The short story, it's a male rancher.
Mm-hmm.
Kelly Reichardt changed it. She said, Todd Haynes and her having conversations. Should I do it? He said, just try it. Just write it out. You're getting too theoretical. If you want to do it, if you're feeling it, write it out. And I'm so glad she did. Because in the short story, it's mostly about the isolation. And the isolation of this worker is they have literally isolated, like, have no people to talk to. I love the corgi. That corgi is like the best dog. The shot where he just like slams his head under a fence to try and get whatever he's. Corgi is on my list. Spoiler of best performances. Anyway, so we follow. It's Lily Gladstone instead of a man. We follow Lily Gladstone in her truck to some other place where there are people, and we see her sit in the back of a classroom. And we're like, this very Kelly Reichardt thing to not give us any exposition, any detail that we need beyond being sort of living in the experience. And she's sitting there, and in comes this nervous Nelly, slouched but really hot, short, wavy bob, Kristen Stewart, with the dark circles under her eyes and like a bunch of note cards. And everyone, regardless of their sexual orientation, is like, I am hot for teacher. I mean, everyone watch.
You can watch Lily Gladstone is so great in this. You can watch her sit up like 3 millimeters when Kristen Stewart walks into the room, and her eyes grow by like 0.5 millimeter.
Like she's really good in this. This story is not about her, and that is an ingenious bit of casting,
Right?
Because she is the object of affection for many people as Kristen Stewart. So put her as this object of affection, but allow her to be a living, breathing human being with quite a few problems. But she's teaching
and completely oblivious. Like that's I think is essential to what's happening here is that she's completely oblivious. Maybe not by the end, obviously, but she's completely oblivious to what why this woman has like Jane. I can't recall if her name's even mentioned, but she's listed in the cast as Jamie. It's Lily Gladstone's character.
I'm not sure either.
But she seems completely she's so, and I don't think that she's being harsh. It's just that she's so scattered and overworked and exhausted, and like she's being pulled in 20 different, as she lays it out so clearly at the diner later when they're having dinner. Like she's being pulled in so many different directions right now. She's at the end of her rope, and I think
has been assigned to teach this class on school law
that she's not qualified for.
Yeah. Right, as a joke with the law firm.
One reason I love that touch is because of the way it echoes like high school rom-com tropes. Like, why did I ask the nerdy girl to the prom? Well, as a prank. Right. How did I get assigned to this law class in the middle of nowhere that I'm not qualified to teach? Well, they did it to me as a prank. Like there's something there about like high school rom-com tropes. I don't know.
Well, and it is like they're in a little high school. It's like, and then
it is. I didn't think of that. Yeah, it's not even like at a community college. It's something in a high school.
It's a high school
after hours,
and
with a bunch of teachers. Apparently, is what I gleaned.
Teachers. You know, Kelly Riker she can be so funny too. That's why I'm so excited for Showing Up, which has been billed as like her first outright comedy, and I'm like, all right, sure. In the way Kelly Riker would do it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But the teachers in this classroom are such assholes. I love it.
Is there a law that guarantees me a parking spot in the
Are you fucking kidding me? Is there a law that says that a student can talk to me in any certain way he wanted? Like he's thinking of what anyway. So after class, she's hanging out. She's like, "Are you registered for this?" And she's like, "No, I just saw people walking in." Andrew, I don't know that I've ever been so devastated in my entire lifetime. Like she's so willing to just sit there because it could be interesting or it's just some sort of to watch human interaction. She doesn't even say anything the entire time.
That strikes me as an Altman-esque detail. As much as this film is not an Altman, that strikes me as like an Altman-esque character detail. Why did you go into that classroom? There were people gathered out there.
I followed the people in.
Yeah. Well, what's going on here?
Shelley Duvall like wandering in.
Yeah.
So they wind up going to this diner. I think the sort of you gestured towards a self-centeredness from Kristen Stewart's character, but she's all because
she's stretched thin. She's stretched thin.
Because she's like driving 4 hours from Helena, or she might be 4 hours from Billings, which is outside of Livingston.
Mm-hmm.
As I understand, I've been to the area before, and it feels like this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like it is fucking nailed.
Big sky, big open spaces, and nothing happening.
Big open spaces and nothing going on, and the people present are like just feel isolated in their own bubbles. Like pretty incredible. Not only on a filmmaking level, but once you start, dissecting all the little details that are going into it, from sound to set design to costumes, the things Kristen Stewart wears, man, that is such like it's perfect. She's got this mustard vest with this like really anyway. This is the one thing I want to bring up. Well, many things about this segment is this cheeseburger. This cheeseburger that she's eating with these fries that are like batter dipped. It's made in 16 millimeters, so you get a lot of rich detail.
Yeah.
It looks so good. But when she goes to wipe her mouth and picks up the napkin wrapped diner silverware and uses the napkin to wipe. Oscar.
I need to know whose idea that was.
Whose idea was that? Because I'm watching it, I'm like,
that ad-libbed?
that is such a smart, like, actorly, like, I can't, like, because I'm who I am, I'm thinking about that, but it doesn't play as, like, it's very Marlon Brando picks up the glove and starts playing with it on the waterfront. Anyway, desire.
But this is
desire.
Apart
love.
from the idea, like the meta idea that it's K-Stew, and that's why, of course, why she's enamored with her. But I think this is also a good to sort of bring it to our theme for this series. I think this is a really good showcase for like where I don't know if it's the moment that I first started to like go, oh, is Kristen Stewart a great actress? But there's something about her acting style that is such a perfect fit for this character and what she represents. Again, she's not the main character, but for what she represents to Jamie, right? And how they're sort of, as much as Jamie's trying to force a connection, how they're still colliding off of each other because of everything that's going on in Beth's life, she can't really concentrate on that. But something about that sort of scattered, the way that she talks about her own life in this sort of mildly self-deprecating way, like there's just something
in her family, and
it just suits Stewart's style so well. And I think we'll see sort of that come into full flower with her collaborations with Assayas later on, right? But here it suits her so well, and we're sort of with as much as she like she looks kind of haggard and she looks so exhausted, but we're with Lily Gladstone. We're just sitting back with a glass of iced water going, you are
smiling.
awesome. Yeah, smiling at her going, you're awesome.
You're awesome.
Can I be your friend?
It's just like everything about that character. Kristen Stewart seems to play people stuck in stratifications, but she's like the star within that and always sort of trying to break out. And you can see that here where she's low person on a totem pole, like she's talking about a law firm, but Lily Gladstone ends up finding her working for the city of Livingston. This detail I thought was really interesting in that she was already sort of inflating what she was doing. But I think about her, because we're not going to be able to talk about it. We'll talk about it eventually. Her in Personal Shopper, where she is literally a personal shopper. And
I have this feeling that we'll be doing Personal Shopper on the show at some point.
And Clouds of Sils Maria, where she's again like ordered off, but this interesting beguiling presence that leaves a vacuum when she disappears from the film.
Yeah.
So you can feel the same thing happening here, but you're never really along with her. You were always with Lily Gladstone. And they're talking the part where she brings the horse. It's so painful to watch, but it is so fucking charming that she's like, she says she's not familiar with horses, and I do this. Let me show her some of me and my life. And then they go through town on a fucking horse.
And again, the way that Lily Gladstone sort of, I don't want to say underplays the wrong word, because it's kind of, I feel like it gets a discredit.
She's expressive, but
the role is underplayed, I should say. So I do want to credit Reichardt's writing here in the adaptation, because there's a different version of this that's more sweetly rom-com-y in its feeling or something, where
or even the opposite, where it's without anything and you're allowed to read whatever you want on this character.
but there's a version of this where she shows up with the horse and gets way too sappy with it, where she's like, "Your chariot awaits, milady," or something like that. No, Jamie just
No,
shows
I
up and
couldn't
says,
handle that.
"Here's the horse. We're going to go
Yeah.
to the diner."
There's a shot of Lily Gladstone there's many shots of her looking longingly at Beth.
Mhm.
But there's one where it's dark outside and the street light lamps are creating lens flares, but something moves, Lily Gladstone moves, and her head is in like a quarter profile, and the way a light reflects off of Lily Gladstone's eyes looks like she's crying stars. It's so just tiny and beautiful.
All
and
on 16 millimeter. Yeah.
16 millimeter. I mean, that was the right thing. They were originally going to make it digital, but they didn't like the way the snow looked on digital because white will just glare out or flare out and flatten. They wanted texture to the snow. I'm like, yeah,
I'll buy that.
16 millimeter.
But I do want to touch on like one of the things that I think is essential to why this third segment works. And you mentioned the theme of isolation. And I think there's a viewer who when they would see this segment would be like, why do we keep going back to these long segments of Jamie working at the ranch? And the answer to me is obvious. Like we're getting the rhythm of her life and we're imprinting I think it only happens 3 times, that sort of that rhythm of back and forth to the high school to see Beth. I think it only happens 3 times, but by the third time we already get a sense of how valuable and precious that seeing Beth in the evenings on those 2 nights a week is for her. And so when the final moment comes and she drives all the 4 hours to see Beth and to stalk Beth kind of, and it all comes kind of spilling out of her in this halting way of, you weren't there and I was worried and I needed to see you. And
I was worried that I had already seen you for the last time.
Yeah.
Something like that. But that's as far as it goes.
Right.
In my memory, Beth said, "I'm sorry, I'm just not that way."
No.
That doesn't happen.
No. It just kind of ends in, okay, well, I'm going to go to work now.
I have to go to work because she's sort of nervous about it. And it's the fulfillment of what she was nervous about when she saw the horse, which is very clear. It's like, oh, I think there's maybe something else. And I do question in that character how much of it is that I'm tired of the drive, but I might have done something. I might have fucked up with this person who's very sweet and it's going a little too far. I've already gone too far and I didn't realize I was doing it.
Yeah.
You know,
again, we're not with Beth, so we're not privy to like what her rationale is. All we're stuck with Jamie and her heartbreak is all we get.
And, you know, the shot of her just driving away and it's, yeah. And then
kind of crashing.
She's exhausted. She's just exhausted. And it's such a it's not like a violent crash. She just kind of veers off the road, thank God. Goes through a fence and stops. You can see her head is like, it's not slumped over or anything, but you can see in that shot that her head is erect. She was just like, fuck.
Yeah.
Oh, so it could be that she's stuck in that. And her coda is really the kind of the 4th time that we see her working.
The hopeless one where there's no Beth in the future. I hate to end on such a downer note, but that's really what it feels
didn't
like.
end the movie that way.
Yeah.
That's not our fault. It's not our fault. You got any other stray thoughts about certain women?
Oh God, there's so much. I feel like
there's so much.
We've done in like an hour and a half on this one movie, and I feel like we've barely scratched the surface.
What if we divided this episode into 3 episodes? Wouldn't that be funny?
No,
no,
I don't think people want to hear. I don't think people want to hear us gush about Laura Dern for that extended period of time.
Maybe they don't. Maybe they don't. All right.
Again, I do. It's interesting. So, would you say this is your favorite Reichardt film?
I would like to see Meek's cutoff on the big screen.
Weirdly, Meek's Cutoff is on 35, which is strange because it's like the most retro film she had made up to that point until First Cow. And she's using like she's using like the highest fidelity film that she's used to that point. But she
And
does
that's
but
part
then
of the reason is that I saw it streaming on Amazon and watched it during the day, and she's using natural light.
Mhm.
So natural light in the middle of nowhere means a fucking lamp, like a flame lamp. So
little hurricane lanterns and everything.
there are scenes that are almost in pitch black, but I think there's probably more detail there that I'm not seeing. Because there's a lot of fucking chew on in that one.
Oh yeah. So I go back and forth between I like her in sort of period mode. So I go back and forth between I love Certain Women a lot, but I go back and forth between Meek's Cutoff and First Cow as being my favorite.
I keep forgetting about First Cow because I didn't rewatch it. Maybe First Cow and Meek's Cutoff, then Certain Women are like three things that I wouldn't want to live without. But Certain
Wendy
Women
Lucy is great too. Wendy Lucy is really good too.
I'm not going back there anytime soon.
You want to run your heart
makes that
over a
decision.
cheese grater a few more times.
When she makes that decision, Andrew,
yeah,
I died. That I am here after seeing her make that decision is a miracle. But yeah, I think there are a handful that yes, I would say are at the tops. The one that's the most me is this one.
I can buy that. I buy that.
Yeah.
And I do like, so one last thought is I do like, we talked about like the earlier about the bigness of that first episode, the way that the stakes are sort of larger and it's in this more familiar genre trope of the standoff and the negotiation and the hostage and all that. But I do like how fundamentally, like each segment, you alluded to this, I think that each segment is partly about the idea of not being able to suss out what somebody else is thinking and not being able, because you don't know exactly what you're thinking, the difficulty in you negotiating your thoughts and conveying your thoughts because you're scared of overplaying or underplaying your hand. And in the first one, it has potentially violent consequences. Like the stakes are, as much as low key as that hostage standoff is, it's still hostage standoff. There's still a gun. And so like there's a sense of the stakes. We're trying to everybody to lay down their guns and resolve this peacefully. The stakes in the second one are transactional, right? We want this thing, this physical object from you, and we're trying to negotiate how to get it from you. And then the third, it's entirely emotional. There's this thing I want, and I don't know how to tell you that I want this thing, and I don't even know whether this is something you would be amenable to. Yeah, I don't even know that if you would be into it. So like, it's interesting that every one of them is a negotiation in some ways. It's just the horrible human situation of not knowing what the person across from you is thinking and not knowing how to structure your words and your interactions with them to achieve the result you want.
I love movies.
I think that's one of the things I love about all of Reichardt's films is that there are things that I like about each one. Like obviously I have my favorites, but like even River of Grass, which I don't think you're as big a fan of as I am, but there are things that are precious to me about each one of her films, which is why.
Is it Larry Fessenden's forehead?
Larry Fessenden, like not expecting to see him in like shirtless Walton Goggins scumbag sexy mood.
Looking like Pennywise without the makeup.
Yeah, I did not expect that at all.
Sorry. Larry Fessenden, I'm sure, is a wonderful person. And I also suffer from high forehead problems. So please do not come after me, Larry Fessenden. I have seen some of your pictures. I know what you're capable of.
He's a twisted fuck.
He's a twisted fuck.
All right, that is part one of our Certain Women episode. In part two, you're going to get Now Showing. We're going to talk about Scream 6, John Wick 4, Boston Strangler, have a little bit of Succession talk, Turner Classic Movies, as well as our favorite top 3 Kelly Reichardt film performances. Until then, make sure you follow us at the Take Up STL on social media and visit our website at thetake-up.com. I want to thank Kayla McCullough for our social media, Jessica Pierce for our editing, and our friends at Cinema St. Louis.